If you think the next financial crisis will look like the last one, think again. Because what's coming isn't just another recession. It's a once-in-a-lifetime global reset. It's the kind of event that divides history into a before and after. And according to Robert Kiyosaki, the legendary author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, this collapse won't just destroy wealth. It will redefine how an entire generation thinks about money, work, security, and success itself. Let me ask you something. Do you ever wonder why, despite working harder than ever, so many people feel poorer, more stressed, and more uncertain about the future? Do you ever feel like the system itself is rigged against you? Like no matter how much you save, how much you earn, or how hard you grind, the finish line keeps moving farther away? If you do, you're not alone. And that's not by accident. Robert Kiyosaki has been warning us for decades that the traditional financial advice we were taught, go to school, get a good job, work hard, save money, buy a house, and retire on your pension, is not just outdated, it's dangerous. It's a blueprint designed for a world that no longer exists. The rules of money have changed, and those who don't understand the new rules will be left behind when the old system collapses. So, what does Kiyosaki mean by a collapse? And why does he believe it will change an entire generation? To understand that, we need to rewind the tape, not just a few years but decades, to see how we got here. In 1971, something happened that most people today have never even heard of. U.S. President Richard Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. Overnight, money stopped being backed by anything real. It was no longer tied to gold, silver, or any tangible asset. It became what's called fiat currency, money created by government decree. And with that single decision, the financial world fundamentally changed. From that moment on, governments and central banks had the power to print money out of thin air. And print they did. Over the next 5 decades, the supply of dollars exploded. Every time there was a crisis, whether it was the dot-com crash, the 2008 meltdown, or the pandemic, the solution was the same: print more money, lower interest rates, and flood the system with cheap credit. On the surface, it worked. Stock markets soared, housing prices exploded, and the economy kept chugging along. But behind the curtain, a dangerous imbalance was growing. The rich, those who understood how money and assets really worked, got richer than ever. And the middle class, those who followed the old rules, got squeezed. This is the first truth Kiyosaki wants you to understand. Money itself has changed. It's no longer real wealth. It's no longer a store of value. It's debt. And the system is built to reward those who know how to use debt to acquire real assets, and to punish those who simply trade their time for dollars. Think about it. If you keep your money in a savings account, you're losing purchasing power every single day due to inflation. If you rely solely on a paycheck, you're paying the highest taxes of anyone in the system. But if you borrow money to buy assets, like real estate, businesses, or commodities, you use the system's debt to build wealth. That's what the rich do, and that's why they get richer during crises while everyone else panics. Now here's where the story gets even more serious. We're reaching the end of that 50-year experiment. Global debt, government, corporate, and personal, has ballooned to over $300 trillion. Entire nations are drowning in liabilities they can never repay. Central banks are trapped. If they raise interest rates, the system collapses. If they keep printing, inflation spirals out of control. It's a lose-lose scenario. Kiyosaki calls this the greatest bubble in human history. And like every bubble in history, it will burst. The difference this time is that the fallout won't just be financial, it will be generational. Because the collapse won't just wipe out bank accounts, it will wipe out belief systems. For decades, people believed their pension funds would be there when they retire. They believed their home value would always go up. They believed that the government would protect their savings and that the dollar was safe. Those illusions are about to shatter. And when they do, people will be forced to confront a new reality. The future belongs not to those who work for money, but to those who understand money. This is the second truth Kiyosaki teaches, and it's one that separates the financially free from the financially trapped. There are four types of people in the economy, represented by his famous cash flow quadrant. E. Employees. They work for someone else and trade time for money. S. Self-employed. They own their job, but they still trade time for money. B. Business owners. They build systems and use other people's time and skills to create income. I. Investors. They make money work for them. Most people spend their entire lives stuck in the E and S quadrants. They focus on job security instead of financial freedom. They work harder, save more, and hope that someday they'll be safe. But safety is an illusion. Inflation eats away their savings. Taxes take a huge chunk of their income. And when the system shakes, as it soon will, they're the first to fall. The wealthy, on the other hand, operate in the B and I quadrants. They understand that money is just a tool that can be multiplied, leveraged, and protected. They don't just earn money, they build assets that produce cash flow. They don't just work for a paycheck, they create businesses that pay them even when they sleep. And they don't just save money, they convert it into things that hold real value, like real estate, commodities, intellectual property, or productive companies. But here's the good news. And this is the part Kiyosaki wants every person to understand. The collapse isn't a death sentence. It's an opportunity. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to rewrite your financial destiny. Because every crisis in history has created two types of people, those who panic and those who prepare. When the 2008 crisis hit, millions lost their homes. But others bought foreclosed properties for pennies on the dollar and became millionaires. When stock markets crash, most people sell in fear. But the wealthy buy assets at a discount and grow their fortunes. The difference isn't luck, it's knowledge, it's mindset, it's understanding how the system works before it breaks. So how do you prepare for the collapse that's coming? Kiyosaki's advice is simple, but not easy. First, stop relying on the government, the banking system, or your employer to secure your future. That era is over. Your security must come from you, from your skills, your financial education, and your ability to create and control cash flow. Second, get out of bad debt and into good debt. Bad debt is the money you borrow to buy things that don't make you money: cars, vacations, consumer junk. Good debt is the money you borrow to acquire assets, rental properties, businesses, or investments that generate income. Third, diversify away from paper assets that depend on central banks and Wall Street. Stocks and bonds can have a place in your portfolio, but they shouldn't be your only strategy. Look into real estate, precious metals like gold and silver, and alternative assets that hold intrinsic value regardless of what the dollar does. Fourth, learn the language of money. Most people don't lose money because they're stupid. They lose it because they're financially illiterate. They don't understand how taxes work, how inflation erodes wealth, how compound interest can work for them or against them. If you commit to learning those principles now, you'll be light years ahead when the collapse happens. And finally, perhaps most importantly, shift your mindset from employee to entrepreneur, from consumer to creator, from saver to investor. The future doesn't belong to those who work the hardest. It belongs to those who think the smartest. This is why Kiyosaki often says, "Your house is not an asset." He's not trying to be controversial. He's trying to wake people up. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. If your home costs you money every month, it's a liability, even if you own it. Once you start thinking in those terms, the way you make decisions will change. And that's the deeper message behind all of this. The coming collapse isn't just about economics, it's about transformation. It's about unlearning decades of conditioning and building a new relationship with money. It's about teaching your children and their children how to thrive in a world where the old rules no longer apply. Generations before us were told that wealth was about hard work and saving. But in the new era, wealth is about knowledge, leverage, and adaptation. The collapse will expose that truth for everyone to see. It will be painful. It will be chaotic. but it will also be liberating for those who are prepared. Because when the dust settles, a new financial order will emerge, and those who understood what was coming, those who listened, learned, and acted, won't just survive it. They'll shape it. They'll build businesses that solve new problems. They'll acquire assets that others are forced to sell. They'll invest in technologies, commodities, and opportunities that define the next century. And that's why Robert Kiyosaki says this collapse will change a generation, not because it will destroy us, but because it will awaken us. It will force millions of people to stop chasing job titles and start building financial independence. It will push families to stop living paycheck to paycheck and start creating generational wealth. It will turn employees into entrepreneurs, consumers into investors, and dreamers into doers. We can't control when the collapse happens. We can't control how governments or central banks will respond. But we can control how we prepare for it. We can control how much we learn, how much we build, and how much we take responsibility for our own future. So the question isn't whether a collapse is coming. It's coming, and sooner than most people think. The real question is, who will you be when it arrives? Will you be the person who panics, who clings to the old system, who watches their wealth evaporate because they trusted the wrong advice? Or will you be the person who saw it coming, who educated themselves, who turned crisis into opportunity and walked away stronger than ever? The choice is yours. But make no mistake, this is the moment to choose. The greatest transfer of wealth in human history is already underway. And like every great transfer, it won't go to the hardest workers. It will go to the most prepared. So stop waiting, start learning, build assets, create cash flow, take control, because the collapse that will change a generation isn't a threat. It's an invitation to finally become the master of your money, not its servant. And if you accept that invitation, if you act now, if you commit to playing the new game by the new rules, then no matter how hard the storm hits, you won't just weather it. You'll rise above it. Because as Robert Kiyosaki reminds us, it's not the economy that makes you rich or poor. It's the decisions you make. And the decisions you make right now, before the collapse, will echo for decades to come. Choose wisely. The future is watching.